Hi there guys, it's Adam Martin here and welcome back to another video on AMTV Who. And we've had some really exciting news. We have the launch date for the brand new series of Doctor Who. It's going to be premiering on May the 11th, the same night as Eurovision, which as we all know is the best television programme of the year. Must watch, must watch. But Doctor Who will be returning that same day with a double bill, mind you. 2 episodes to lead into the grand final on the 11th of May. They announced this with a press release from the BBC. We're definitely going with Doctor Who Season 1. I know that has already stemmed a whole bunch of controversy. I'm not too personally bothered about it. You know, we've reset numbers before, season, series, whatever you want to call it. It's definitely probably brought in as well with the Disney Plus deal. Not the only thing brought in with that, but we're going to talk about it. But let's see what the press release has to say. A simultaneous global premiere date is revealed as the Doctor launches into the WHONIVERSE on BBC and Disney Plus. It's set to make an explosive return on the 11th of May as the TARDIS will make its global premiere around the WHONIVERSE. For those in the UK, for the first time ever, the Doctor will land with 2 episodes premiering on BBC iPlayer at midnight, before arriving on BBC One later that day, right before the Eurovision Song Contest Grand Final. At the same time, those outside of the UK can watch the Doctor and Ruby on their epic adventures as the TARDIS is set to land on Disney Plus where available. Viewers in the UK will now be able to watch whenever and wherever they choose, with the option to stream at midnight on BBC iPlayer or tune in at primetime on Saturday nights on BBC One. Oh my goodness, this decision has riled the fandom up the most I've seen in a very long time. So basically what's going to happen, just to avoid any confusion, at midnight, so when we kick on over to Saturday the 11th of May, the first 2 episodes of Season 1 are going to go on BBC iPlayer here in the UK. That means, if you so choose, you could stay up for 2 hours and watch episodes 1 and 2 on BBC iPlayer when they go out at midnight. Or, if you don't want to do that, if you just want to head to bed, or if you don't have the time or whatever, you can alternatively wait till the BBC One broadcast, which will still be on the Saturday, but it'll be in a more traditional time slot. Eurovision tends to start around 8 PM, the grand final, so if we're doing a double bill, expect Doctor Who to start at 6 PM on BBC One. Or lest we forget an alternative option, once it's on iPlayer, it's going to be there. So you could watch it when you get up Saturday morning if you don't have to rush off anywhere. You know, you want to have your breakfast, have your coffee. You can also watch an episode or 2 of Doctor Who there. But this decision has riled up the fandom something chronic. Now, I just want to give my thoughts on this personally. When I read this, you know, I was like, oh great, we're getting a release date. And then when I read the time that it would be dropping, well, let me get this right, man. When I tell you, I thought this decision was absolutely fine. It's fine. I really do think it's fine, and it's not as big of an issue as I've seen some people make it out to be. Now, I just want to preface all of this by saying this is just my opinion. I'm not proclaiming to be the gospel on this or some kind of superior or higher authority. That's not the case at all. I'm just a Doctor Who fan like you watching, and I'm just giving my personal thoughts on the situation and the way what I've seen the fandom at large react to it. The fact it's going on at midnight, is that an ideal time for a family show on the BBC? No. I guess for casual viewers, it's not going to be a problem, those who dip in and out of Doctor Who occasionally, because they might see that it's going to go on midnight, but then if it's promoted a lot that it is also going to be on BBC One, particularly before such a big event as Eurovision, then I think they're going to be able to tune into it, no questions asked, no problem. And I think launching it on Eurovision night is also a really strong air date. There used to be years in the past where Doctor Who would skip a week to avoid Eurovision, but I think now that the contest has become such a big powerhouse in viewing for people, not just in the UK but around the world, at least here in the UK, to schedule Doctor Who right before it, to get the casual viewers who are probably going to be tuning into Eurovision hooked into the series, that it's going to be on Saturday nights for the next 8 weeks or so. Great idea. The iPlayer thing, you know, the reality is a lot of television is going this way. We're seeing this with programs not just on the BBC, it's happening on ITV, Channel 4, any broadcaster that has some kind of streaming or video on-demand service. This is how programs are being distributed to it more and more. And the reasons for that, I think, are fairly obvious. The fact that more and more audiences, whether we like it or not, they are moving towards watching things on streaming. They want to do it digitally. They don't want to wait for a set scheduled time. And I'm not saying that people who want a scheduled program at a set time don't exist. Of course they exist. You know, there are many of them out there still. But the dial, I'd argue, is still beginning to move very quickly into the other direction, and the broadcasters are just trying to respond to that. I also think part of this is something to do with the deal Doctor Who has done now with Disney Plus. The fact that the show is airing everywhere else in the world on Disney Plus, or the territories where Disney Plus is available outside of the UK. You know, let's face it, Disney is this massive company, this huge corporation. It dwarfs the BBC immensely. And I think when they inked this deal, even though, you know, we have things like Russell T Davies still has like creative control, it's still going to be on the BBC in the UK. Naturally, I think in any big discussion like that, there are going to be some things on the paper that Disney want as concessions. And of course, the main upswing, since they're doing it simultaneously around the world, if Doctor Who's going out at midnight in the UK, that means in America, or at least by New York time, it's going out at 7 p.m, which I guess would be the traditional slot for Doctor Who here in this country. So you could argue maybe the Disney Plus deal has lent or moved the dial towards more favoring American audiences rather than British ones. I've seen people online be, oh, we're so screwed over by this, and midnight, you know, most territories around the world haven't had a good time when it comes to Doctor Who. Like, the Americans haven't had it the best all the time. The Australians, man. I mean, Australian viewers, I'm amazed you've put up with this for so long. Power to you. In fact, they're getting it at 9 a.m, so that's actually a decent time. So fair play for the Aussies there. But it's not just the UK that's, you know, at a bad time, quote unquote. You know, you've got the French, the Germans, the Italians. That's all streaming at 1 a.m. That's even later. They're going to have to stay up if they want to watch it on the dot. And the main criticism I've seen with this, and that people have levied at me when talking about this, is that, oh, well, if it's on at midnight and I choose not to watch it then, it's going to be spoiled all over social media. And yeah, that is correct. Sadly, no matter how hard, you know, the majority of fans try to, even when it's broadcast in the evening, spoilers make their way to the internet very quickly, very sharply. They come in all shapes and sizes on all kinds of different platforms. But again, I know, just speaking personally for me, if I'm not able to watch an episode when it drops at midnight and say I've got to wait till either the morning, or even if I had to wait for the terrestrial television broadcast in the evening, I think, for me at least, that just gives me a good excuse not to go on social media until then. You know, we're all addicted to our phones anyway. Some time away from it can't be a bad thing. And I'm speaking as someone who, you know, a lot of my work, not just YouTube stuff, but I mean like acting work as well. People do a lot of acting, like networking over social media, applying for jobs through things we've seen on social media. So it's a core part of my working life. I use it regularly, but I know I can take, you know, a couple of hours away from it if it means avoiding spoilers if I have to. But I've seen, you know, some of the comments I've seen people saying, oh, well, it's going to be spoiled anyway. Well, not if you don't go on your phone, or at least not if you don't go on your social media. You can turn off all notifications so they don't pop up on your lock screen or anything like that. Just shut off all notifications. Don't go on Twitter. Don't go on any of that until you've seen it. And the fact is, again, I think some people, just from what I've seen, are missing the point. They either think you watch it at midnight or you watch it when it airs on BBC One, forgetting the fact that once it goes out at midnight, it can be watched anytime on the iPlayer. Talking strictly UK viewers here. Again, on the whole with this, I think the midnight premiere thing, if this is how it's going to be with the series, I don't necessarily think that's a big deal personally. It clearly does to a lot of people. And I'm not saying you have to like the fact it's dropping at midnight. You know, for a lot of people, that doesn't work for them. And I get that. But there are also people where this later debut time does work for them. People who work in hospitality, people who work jobs, you know, during the traditional, you know, 6, 7 p.m. evening slot. There's always going to be people who are better served by a certain time slot than others. That could happen at any part of the day, and it's always happened part of the day. There are some comments I've seen are literally people, quite frankly, whinging because they've always had it good when it comes to broadcast times, and now they don't anymore. And it reads very much, and again, this is on social media, I'm not hearing these voices, I'm not seeing them face to face, but it very much reads as like throwing toys out the pram. I'm just going what I've seen on my socials, like Twitter, Instagram, all of that, and I'm seeing comments from people, and some people I respect very much, that read very snidey, very spiteful. And it's a shame to see. You know, one I see lots of people showing at the minute is the UK should have priority because the show is made in Britain and therefore the British should get it first. What about the McGann TV movie? You know, the one that premiered in the States 2 weeks before it aired in the UK? And yes, I know that was because it was a co-production deal. Yes, I know that was before social media and streaming services. I know all of that, believe me. But, you know, it's happened before and it probably will happen again where the UK will not get first dibs. The Five Doctors, again, that was in the 80s and that aired a couple of days over there before it did over here. But I think this attitude of it's made in Britain, it's a British show, therefore the British should have priority. Forgive me for saying this, but again, that just reads as very selfish, quite frankly. That reads as very snidey and spiteful. It reads as very entitled. And, you know, Doctor Who fans entitled? No. I mean, it's almost a meme at this point at how entitled some Doctor Who fans can be over certain situations. We can all have opinions, and again, I'm just reading what I'm going off on the socials, but some of those comments, like, people say it needs, quote unquote, needs to be in the UK first. I don't agree with that sentiment. I don't agree that we as Brits should have any sort of, whatever you call it, any sort of priority or, you know, superior treatment over anyone else when it comes to Doctor Who. Because as far as I'm concerned, like, I've reached that point in my life where as long as Doctor Who is coming back, as long as we have an air date, as long as it's dropping somewhere somehow, that's all I care about. That's all I'm bothered about. It could air in the States first. It could air in Antarctica first. And I still wouldn't be that bothered. Because at the end of the day, as much as I love Doctor Who, as I'm sure you love Doctor Who as well, this is just a TV show. It's going out on the air. It might not be at the time we want it, but it's going out nonetheless. And it does confirm that an episode will continue to drop on iPlayer at midnight, followed by a primetime slot on BBC One each week following that. And you know what? I think, again, just going from the casual audience perspective, I do think that the BBC One viewing figures are going to be still pretty decent. Because, so let's face it, some of us are going to watch it again on the terrestrial broadcast even after midnight. And again, those casual viewers will pick up on it as well. But that is the article in itself. It's just telling you when it's coming back and how it's coming back as well. Ultimately, again, just speaking personally, I don't think the midnight drop is a big deal. It's becoming very common. It's becoming very common in television now. The whole things of, like, you know, binge watching is becoming more common. It's not my preference. I'd very much prefer one a week, you know, only on BBC One and then whack it on the iPlayer as it has been for years. I would prefer that. Trust me. If you gave me the choice, that's what I'd pick. But I think with what's there, it's just how it is, whether it's the Disney Plus deal, whether it was a choice within the BBC. I don't know. I'm not in the boardroom. The show's coming back. That's the day. That's the time. We can either watch it the second it drops, or we can watch it over coffee, or we can watch it on BBC One. The choice is yours. Take your pick. But yeah, the whole thing of, like, the spoilers, again, you know, if you use social media as part of your work, that's valid, because then you probably won't avoid it. Again, I might get spoiled as well with how much I need to use social media for my different avenues of work. But if you don't need to use social media, you know, for like a work-related thing or an urgent thing, then just don't go on it. And if you're that terminally online that you have to go on it, you know, it feeds that demon in your brain, then please go outside, touch some grass, have a walk, bask in the sun a little bit. It does wonders, does great wonders. But yeah, that's all for this video. Leave a like if you enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below on this decision on how Doctor Who's dropping this year. Subscribe as well if you're brand new. We'd love to have you aboard. And in the meantime, I've been Adam Martin from AMTV Who. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time.